This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. It's a multi-billion-dollar playground where people from all over the world come to indulge. Just a few miles off the strip.
Everybody killing everybody, you know what I'm saying?
It's a new version of an old Las Vegas tradition.
They're engaging in lawless acts only seen in the movies. These kids have artillery that law enforcement can't get.
Urban warlords who've abandoned their traditional gang affiliations.
We got gangs popping up we never even heard of.
Casting aside all notions of loyalty.
Now they're killing their own homeboys.
These modern gangsters have staked out all of Sin City as their turf.
It don't stop in the neighborhoods, Northtown, West Side. It's all over Las Vegas.
They can pretty much victimize wherever and whenever they feel like it.
Transforming America's favorite tourist destination.
Every day, man, it was drive-bys, you know, people was getting beat up or we was robbing people. Get up against the wall.
Into a hotbed of some of the most brutal criminals in the country.
People going to houses with guns, breaking out windows. I done seen the whole family get their whooped.
Guns, sex, murder, and whatever.
These new Vegas gangsters are a window into the frightening world of gang warfare.
Just like pouring water in a glass with no sides. It would just keep flowing and flowing. That's what makes these gangs in Vegas so dangerous.
Gangland.
Las Vegas, Nevada. August 13th, 1998. 19-year-old Matt Moen was outside cleaning up the front yard of his home. Suddenly, 3 armed intruders seized Moen and dragged him inside. Brandishing weapons, they bound Moen and 3 of his friends who were inside.
The boys were placed on the ground face down. Their legs were bound with duct tape. Their hands were behind their back and bound with duct tape.
The intruders ransacked the house.
They found $240 in cash and a PlayStation that they ended up taking. Was all they had.
Then, one of the gunmen decided to up the ante. What happened next would go down as one of the most heinous crimes in Vegas history. It was the work of a new breed of gangsters in Sin City. Unlike in other cities, these Vegas crews have transcended the geographic boundaries normally associated with street gangs. Blue Angel is a former member of the Crips.
But where I come from, Crips don't hang with Bloods and Bloods don't hang with Crips. And a lot of these new guys, they go against that. You know, they break the rules.
Younger and more fluid in makeup, this new generation of gangs is clicking up. All across the city, turning what were once quiet neighborhoods into battlegrounds.
Just a few weeks ago, a little young cat like 14 years old, get his head shot off right in front of my stairs.
Johnny, a former gang member, asked that we conceal his identity. He says he's shocked by the violent nature of these new crews.
A lot of youngsters out there, they got guns. They don't listen to nobody. They're gonna rob, shoot, steal from whoever they want to.
And their willingness to violate the traditional codes of the streets is seen every day by the police.
Get against the wall, now! Against the wall. Hands up there, up high, up on the wall.
Northbound through the complex.
Control 695 GC.
Sergeant Anthony Longo and Detective Sean McNulty are with Las Vegas Metro's gang unit.
It used to be where you go to a particular part of town, a certain geographical area, and you know that you would find a particular gang in that area and dominating it. Now, you have 4 or 5 gang members from different gangs now part of this one new gang.
As these gangs lose their traditional affiliations, they become harder for law enforcement to identify.
You used to know that red meant blood and blue meant Crip. Nowadays, that's not a hard, fast rule anymore. Even the gang members themselves have a hard time differentiating between themselves as to what set they're with and what clique they're with.
As an original gangster, or OG, Ramont Williams is known on the streets as Paps. He sees the new crews as a slap in the face to the gangsters that came before them.
Back in the days, it was about a neighborhood thing. It wasn't about us going out preying on old ladies, beating up little kids and stuff, you know, robbing old people and stuff like these kids are doing today.
Ramont should know. He's one of the forefathers of Sin City's exploding gang scene.
I'm gonna always be embraced as an OG because I helped originate this here in Las Vegas.
Born in Oakland, Ramont moved with his mother to the LA suburb of Compton in 1969. Looking for a role model, Ramont was taken with Stanley Tookie Williams, one of the original members of the LA street gang known as the Crips.
We see the movies, and this is a reality. You have your stars here, and you have your stars in the hood. These guys were the stars in the hood. These were the people that we can reach out and touch.
At age 11, Ramont was initiated into the gang.
What my initiation entailed at that time was to do something that I don't really care to talk about, but I did it, and I met their needs. I was glad after it was done because I felt I was a part of family.
Thug life immediately transformed Ramont.
I was doing a whole bunch of things I shouldn't have been doing. Shooting dice, getting high. I was intoxicated by that Compton lifestyle.
In 1976, Ramont's mother moved the family out of LA, 300 miles east, into a quiet East Las Vegas neighborhood, hoping it would offer Ramont a safe haven from the California gang life.
I distinctly remember Vegas didn't have the reputation that it had then. I don't even believe that any gangs existed in Vegas at that time.
Ramont quickly changed that. At age 14, he helped establish a set similar to the Crips in Compton. He called his new crew the GQs, after an R&B group.
Somebody was playing a song by GQs sitting in the park. We were listening to that song, and this is how GQs was formulated.
Ramont built up the GQs by recruiting the toughest kids in the neighborhood.
Wasn't nobody that didn't live in that particular area was gonna come over there with anything. You know, plain and simple.
With membership growing, Ramont and his crew quickly expanded their activities to more criminal acts.
We were doing all kinds of I'm talking about, you know, burglaries, home invasions, robberies. If it made money, we were involved in it.
By age 16, Ramont Williams and his GQs had become a terrifying force on the streets of Vegas.
We were getting shot and we were shooting and that seed had bursted, so, you know, we were doing that Wild Wild West thing.
Williams had helped start a new wave of criminal activity, one that would bring Sin City back to its roots. America's playground would once again become a gangster's paradise. 1976. Las Vegas was about to witness a new breed of gangsters. These gangs would bear little resemblance to the wise guys on which the city's reputation was built. 30 years earlier. With front money supplied by East Coast mobsters, Mafia strongman Bugsy Siegel built the city's first luxury casino, the Flamingo, in 1946.
Bugsy Siegel and the mob, organized crime, whatever you want to call it, was seen as running most of the Las Vegas casinos in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Siegel was creating a decadent destination, one whose casinos provided safe cover for a wide array of criminal operations. Hitmen, drug dealers, pimps, and loan sharks soon found safe haven in the Nevada desert. By the 1970s, famed bookie Lefty Rosenthal was at the Stardust, while hitman Tony the Ant Spilantro was controlling much of the street-level crime. By the end of the decade, law enforcement began to crack down on the mob's rule of the city.
The state, through its regulators, the federal government, through prosecutions, really drove out the people who were connected to organized crime.
The Mafia's eventual demise would open the door for a new and more deadly generation of gangsters. Las Vegas was transforming in other ways. By 1985, it was the fastest growing city in America. With affordable housing and steady work on the Strip, working class Los Angelinos abandoned the barrios of Compton and East LA in search of a better life. Many of these new transplants found success legitimately.
The people that come here are hard workers. They want a second chance or a third chance. They want the big house. They want a good job. They want a chance to make the American dream come true.
Other Southern California transplants brought West Coast thug life with them to Vegas. Before landing in Sin City, Little Menace was a member of the Bloods in LA.
A lot of people from Cali come to Vegas because in their own hood, they want it for something. You know what I'm saying? They running from the law, you know, and come out here to escape.
Unlike LA, neighborhoods didn't always break down along racial lines. Gangs that rarely crossed paths on the coast found themselves living side by side in Vegas.
Everybody got the mentality of, this is my neighborhood, this is my soil, I'm gonna protect this, I'm gonna die for this, and you gonna know me at the end of the day.
These dudes came to our town and they represented. You got a lot of dudes from Compton, you got LA always trying to represent in Vegas.
Ramont Williams was one of the first to represent. In 1977, at age 14, Ramont helped establish the GQs, the city's first bona fide West Coast-style gang. The GQs rapidly became one of Sin City's most feared street gangs. They were also one of the youngest.
Everybody that was a part of GQs originally was anywhere from the age of 13 to 16 years old. So we were pretty much babies. We didn't have no 23, 25, or 30-year-old guy that was the leader.
The GQ's rise to power was built on Ramont's innovative ideas about how the game should be played. He saw the Vegas melting pot as an opportunity to take gangbanging to the next level. It would have been taboo back in Compton, but to further their criminal enterprises, Ramont's GQs reached out to their rivals.
We know each other's reputation, we respect each other, and once we form a bond, then we become a force to reckon with because now we know the weaknesses of all these other gangs. So we become more of a threat.
One of the gangs the GQs worked with was the Playboys, a group also from LA.
We aligned ourselves with the Playboys because they were about money. They were pulling all these robberies, and every time you seen them, they had all the latest gear, you know, a pocket full of money, the jewelry.
By working with gangs like the Playboys, Ramont claims the GQs were able to spread their criminal activities across the entire city.
We started from Donna Street in an apartment complex, and we spread it all the way out through Northtown, all the way up on the west side, Berkeley Square, Valley View, Vegas Heights, all that stuff on the west side was all GQs.
During this period in the late 1970s, the Vegas streets were being flooded with a toxic drug known as Sherm. Sherm was cheap to make and easy to distribute. The concoction had hallucinogenic effects.
Once you become intoxicated, you know that alters your state of mind. So they're not thinking rationally.
Ramont and his crew not only dealt Sherm, they used it too. A habit that brought his mercurial rise to an abrupt halt. August 1981. 10 miles from the Strip, Ramont Williams and several members of the Playboys attempted to rob a crowded casino bar in North Las Vegas. Zoned out on Sherm, the gang was sloppy in their execution. As they were leaving the casino, the cops pulled up to the scene, and Ramont found himself in the middle of a firefight.
The police shot as I went back in the door, and the glass shattered. So my homeboy was next to me, so I took the gun and started shooting back at the police through the busted glass.
The cops took out one of the Playboys.
I heard 2 shots, pow, pow, and I seen him fall. So instead of me running, getting shot in the back like he shot him, I said, F it.
Ramont grabbed one of the patrons as a hostage and locked himself in a nearby freezer. After a long standoff with the police, Ramont surrendered.
And the negotiator came, the same shit you see in the movies. They got the place surrounded, they ain't gonna never get up out of here. They're just gonna eventually end up killing us.
Ramont was arrested and charged with robbery with the use of a deadly weapon. He was convicted and sentenced to 56 years in prison. Williams was 18 years old.
The judge made it perfectly clear that he was going to make an example out of us because he knew we were all gang affiliated, and he gave us the maximum sentence. It's allowed by law. I was the first Crip to set foot in Nevada's penal system.
Ramont's incarceration created a new power vacuum in the Vegas underworld. Waiting in the wings was a crew that would plunge the city into an all-out war.
I was just like, I don't give a f. I'm gonna do what I want to do. A gangster, you gonna rob, kill, you don't get your money though. You know what I'm saying?
(1981), with Ramont Williams behind bars, the gang he founded, the GQs, were no longer a force on the streets of Vegas. It wasn't long before one of the many gangs that had begun clicking up in Sin City stepped in to fill the void. One of these new crews was the Rolling 60s. Like the GQs, they had roots in the LA-based Crips. The 60s adopted many of the gang's customs. They wore blue, the Crips' traditional color. They used the gang's handshake.
The handshake in with a C for the Crip, you know what I'm saying?
They also sported Crip-style tattoos.
The RSC, Rolling 60 Crip, that's how you identify yourself.
In the beginning, the gang mimicked the Crips' hierarchy. There were 4 levels of membership. OGs at the top, then 7s, 4s, and 3s. That's where the similarities between the 60s and the Crips ended. Like the GQs, the Rolling 60s were willing to conduct their violent business in a way that the Crips would have found taboo. Working with other gangs to capitalize on the soaring Vegas drug trade. By the late 1980s, crack cocaine had supplanted Sherm as the drug of choice. It was twice as addictive to users and twice as lucrative to dealers.
That's what it was right there. Serving the white boys, the Mexicans, everybody wanted that coke.
As long as members kicked up a percentage of their crack cocaine sales to gang leaders, 60 soldiers could roll with whomever they chose.
It wasn't no head dude you go to. It was like, okay, you got your clique that you roll with, you know what I'm saying? You got your gang, but you got the clique.
This made getting product into the hands of users easier than ever.
We used to go out there, do our thing, bam. Sell our drugs early in the morning. And whoever get there early, they get the most money. They get the most crackheads.
In the 1990s, the Rolling 60s, mimicking Ramont Williams' GQs, embarked on an ambitious plan to deliver drugs citywide. In this joint venture, rival gangs would supply coke to the 60s. And in turn, the 60s would sell in neighborhoods where these groups had no presence.
The same gangs that once were sworn enemies, rivals to each other, have now aligned themselves with their enemy.
Soon, within miles of the fabled Vegas Strip, the Rolling 60s were operating drug houses all over Vegas.
There were areas of town where we stopped Rolling 60 Crips that were involved in criminal activity far, far away from what you would consider their neighborhood.
Their resources stretched thin by the booming drug trade. The 60s began recruiting children. Kids as young as 11 or 12 were tapped to be foot soldiers.
Some of the older gang members that are now over the age of 18 are going to have an adult record. They'll utilize that enthusiasm on the part of the younger gang members so that they can get things done for the gang and then not answer to the charges themselves.
I got my little locked up at 11 years old. I bet I can do as much crime as I want before I hit 18. When I hit 18, that's when the big boy status comes.
In 1999, the Rolling 60s began turning on the rival gangs who they joined in the drug trade. The violence spun out of control with the assassination of one of the 60s largest suppliers, James Clark Lee, known on the streets as Junebug.
Instead of paying Junebug for the drugs on one occasion, they decided it'd just be easier to kill him.
Junebug's murder triggered all-out war between the Rolling 60s and their former suppliers.
Drive-by shootings or walk-up shootings, violent activity was escalating.
We ain't no punks. We ain't just going, okay, we're gonna let you get the money now. Nah, you gonna go over, you gonna get your ass rolled on, you know what I'm saying? You don't get shot.
Johnny claims that several teenage soldiers helped knock over a military surplus and gun store. The robbery netted a small arsenal of weapons.
Everything from AKs to SKSs, you got Glocks, you got Glock 40s, you got 45s, 44s, you got all types of guns just from one leg.
The casualties mounted on both sides, including Johnny's older brother, a high-ranking member of the Rolling 60s.
He was driving down the street, a very familiar spot in Las Vegas, at a stoplight. They pulled over next to him. He didn't have a chance to pull his gun out. They lit the car up with the AK, lit the whole car up.
The bloodshed culminated in July 2003, a night local law enforcement still refers to as the Night of Hell.
In a 48-hour period, there was 4 homicides and 7 attempt homicides that were attributed to the Rolling 60s.
Something had to be done, so we ended up getting a task force together.
With the help of the FBI, Vegas law enforcement set up video monitoring, wiretaps, and car surveillance on the Rolling 60s. The sting yielded evidence of drug trafficking, extortion, and prostitution. The most chilling evidence was the surveillance video of this man, D. Loke, one of the Rolling 60s chief hitmen. D. Loke was caught on one tape confessing to an FBI informant about a burglary he and fellow Rolling 60s members had just committed.
We were able to record him talking about the incident and talking about how he felt he needed to kill his co-defendants so they wouldn't tell on him also. It's a pretty chilling video.
This goes to robbery. You know what I'm saying? I'm you can come do it with. Because when I go in, if it's that type of party, ain't nobody talking.
They went into a drug house, and their intent was to rob the rival gang members of their drugs.
I made up my mind on that. If this all over and any one of them talk, I'm gonna blow them fools' heads off.
They ended up murdering the 2 guys in the house.
No lights. Only lights you seen was from them gun.
After a 2-year investigation, law enforcement would gather enough evidence to arrest 42 members of the gang. The Rolling 60s didn't know what hit them.
One day we all on the block kicking back, drinking yak, Hennessy, all that. Next thing you know, okay, you got like 5, 6, like 10 police cars come up on you, bam.
Johnny wasn't picked up in the sweep, but even with the heat coming down on his crew, he decided to pull a carjacking.
I cocked the shotgun and told them, you gonna get out this car or you gonna get your head blown the off. That's gonna get a lot of scared. Once they hear that, they gonna get out the car with a hurry upness.
Moments later, the police caught up to Johnny.
They start flashing their lights and I ain't going out like that, man. You know what I'm saying? If I go on the freeway, I'm on a high-speed chase, I'm gone, man. If I lose them on the freeway, hide the gun, stash the car somewhere, you know what I'm saying? They end up finding me.
Johnny was convicted of robbery and sent to prison, joining dozens of his fellow 60s soldiers behind bars. With one of the city's largest gangs now virtually out of commission, a new wave of gangsters scrambled to take their place. These gangsters took the deadly Vegas street game to a new level of chaos. They were willing to kill members of their own crew to establish their reputation.
The leadership's changed, the influence changed. Now they're killing their own homeboys from their own set.
The breakdown of the rules in gang warfare would quickly spread into the community. Las Vegas, 2003. Within months of the Rolling 60s takedown, droves of upstart gangs began vying for control of the streets of Sin City.
You can neutralize it for a second, like with the indictment. You ain't gonna stop it, though.
Thanks in part to the blueprint laid out by the Rolling 60s, Vegas gangbangers were now willing to click up with anyone. Loyalty was no longer part of the code.
Back in the day, you're not gonna find a blood with a Crip or a Crip with a blood. But nowadays, you may even see the blood and a Crip working together.
No longer tied to a specific group or piece of turf, this new generation felt free to terrorize every hood in Sin City.
They're mobile, you know, almost nomadic in the way that they operate, and they can pretty much victimize wherever and whenever they feel like.
This random new brand of violence spilled over into the wider community, resulting in one of the most horrific crimes Vegas has ever witnessed. August 13th, 1998, 11 p.m. 3 armed intruders accosted 19-year-old Matt Moen on the front lawn of a house he was renting with a few of his buddies. At gunpoint, they dragged Moen into the house where 3 of his friends were inside. The gunman placed the boys face down on the floor and bound their legs and hands with duct tape. Moen and his friends lay helpless as the intruders ransacked the house.
There were items strewn about the carpet, plants were pulled out of their pots, cushions were taken off of sofas.
Their haul, $240 and a PlayStation. One of the burglars then turned to the 4 boys. One by one, he shot Moen and his friends, execution style, a single bullet to the back of the head.
Just imagine being duct taped face down on the ground with 3 of your other friends and hearing them being shot one at a time and knowing your time is coming next.
David Moen, Matt's father, learned about his son's murder when he found the house surrounded by police vehicles.
Nothing will ever prepare you to see the site where your son and 3 of his friends were murdered. Why they had to tie them up with duct tape and then shoot in the back of the head, just like you're shooting an animal. I don't understand.
Shortly after the murders, authorities arrested 19-year-old Dante Johnson. Though a member of the LA-based Bloods, Dante was also part of the new freewheeling trend in the Vegas underworld. He floated from clique to clique, seeking to establish himself as a force on the streets.
Dante Johnson was not a very big man physically, but he wanted people to respect him, and if people wouldn't show respect, it was known that he would kill them.
Neither of Dante's accomplices, Sakia Smith or Terrell Young, shared his connection to the Bloods. Dante and his crew were tried, and each was convicted on 4 counts of murder. Smith and Young were given life sentences. Dante was condemned to death by lethal injection. During sentencing, he and his crew expressed little remorse.
They were all bragging that they were part of this. They thought it was funny.
Upstart cliques like Johnson's now had a name: hybrids. They were something new in gangster culture.
If you got 10 people, they all about pimping or whatever, that could be a hybrid gang right there. And they could be from different neighborhoods. You know, you a Blood, you a Crip, you a Garcia. We're gonna hook up, we're gonna get the money together.
For Las Vegas Metro's gang units, it's another day and another drug bust.
Yeah, you're chilling. You got no weapons on you, do you?
No.
Okay, you don't mind if I pat you down for my own safety then, do you?
And as we came over this way, there was 3 guys out there, and they were rolling dice or bones, what they call it.
You guys live over here?
Yeah, I stay right here.
Okay, come on over here to the front for me. Keep your hands out of your pockets, gentlemen. Right to the front of the hood. Front of the hood, man.
All 3 had narcotics on them. 2 of them had cocaine. 1 was powder, 1 was crack cocaine.
What kind of narcotic is that little bag?
You see what it is?
I know it could be meth, it could be cocaine, it could be, you know, that kind of thing. That's what I'm asking. What color is the rag in your pocket? What's this right in here? That's what I'm asking about. Your do-rag. What color is it?
Oh, black.
Oh, okay. Just like the one you got in your head?
These crews had forsaken traditional gang attire. Because they don't fly colors, hybrid gangs are more difficult for law enforcement to identify.
Out of the 3 that were stopped, 2 are gang members from local gangs. One's a West Coast Blood and the other was a Gerson Park Kingsman.
It's not just law enforcement who have a difficult time identifying hybrid gang members. Old school bangers like Johnny can't keep it straight either.
We got gangs popping up we ain't never even heard of. It's hard to keep track of all who you beefing with.
But the sheer random violence associated with these new crews sets them apart.
I walk by and another nigga like, oh, that nigga think he hard or he think he look good. Clack, clack, blow, you dead. Just killing each other over nonsense, man. Over nonsense, so a little $5, $10 bag of weed, man, $2, $3. You get killed.
No reason behind it. You know, I lost my buddies and I almost could have lost my life over the smallest thing.
Many hybrid gangsters were willing to turn on members of their own crew if need be.
You got Crips hurting Crips, Bloods hurting Bloods, you know, cliques with Bloods and Crips in it, and rolling 60s, and, you know, various gang members just working together for one common cause.
For Ramont Williams, hybrid banging was at odds with the life he led behind bars. Sent to prison for robbery in 1981, Ramont stayed true to the old school gang code. Once a Crip, always a Crip.
I ran all the Crips in the penal system. Any Crip that came into the penal system, when they got off the bus, they were sending word, you know, where's the big homie at?
On the inside, loyalty to your gang meant everything.
We all fell under one category because, like I explained to them, we all represent the same thing. We all wear blue, we all holler cuz, and we all ride or die for the same thing.
By organizing the Crips under one umbrella, Ramont claims he succeeded in curbing prison violence. He says that earned him points with the state parole board.
I had won a poetry contest. and it was called Wasted Time. And at the end of the poetry states, I wonder if I remain a man or evolve into a beast. Will you keep me incarcerated long enough to turn me into a beast like I see so many other people?
When Williams came up for parole in 1994, the state parole board answered that question and released him.
I couldn't believe it, man. Being in prison almost 20 years, and then just, you know, somebody in their heart finding the compassion to say, enough's enough.
The parole board's faith in Williams was sadly misplaced. Ramont wasted no time in squandering his second chance. A year after he was paroled, Ramont hooked up with Donna Street, the crew that now ruled the turf once dominated by his GQs. Donna Street rolled in a more brutal fashion than Ramont had ever seen.
These youngsters were killing anything and everybody. Donna Street Crips took gangbanging to a whole level. Not to say that I honor anything they did as far as murders and stuff like that. I'm just saying they took it to a whole nother level.
The pull of that gangster lifestyle proved too much for Ramont. All those years in the pen had only made him more violent.
I was that hardened gangster thug street warrior, if you will. Even more so than I was before, 100 times more.
Within a few months, Ramont was committing more crimes on the streets of Vegas than he ever had as the leader of the GQs.
I did things behind the scenes that I wouldn't normally do. I didn't have a heart, no compassion for anybody.
Soon, Ramont found himself involved in drug dealing, as well as running a high-priced prostitution ring.
I just monopolized it and took it to a whole different level. In my own way, I felt I was the Black Scarface.
Still, Ramont felt his new crew couldn't be trusted. He began to wonder if each day on the street might be his last.
I was always looking over my shoulders. I was always peeking out the window every time I heard a door shut. You know, I just have some of my homies shadow me so people wouldn't try to rob me and stuff like that.
It was the cops, not fellow gangsters, that brought Ramont down again. One afternoon, he received a harrowing call from his wife.
She was screaming, and I was like, calm down, tell me what's going on. She said, the FBI and the DEA just kicked in the door. And I said, well, how the hell are you on the phone then? She said, your PO got the phone up to my ear.
Ramont's parole officer told him he'd been charged with assault with a deadly weapon. Ramont surrendered without a fight.
When I turned myself in, it was like everybody was looking for me.
His parole was revoked, and he was sentenced to 3 more years in the state pen. Ramont's first stint in prison had created a vacuum on the streets. This time around, he was just one of thousands of players in a Vegas gang scene spinning out of control. (2008). Old school Vegas gangs like the GQs and the Rolling 60s have given way to hybrid crews that get more fluid and more violent every day.
I got 9 homeboys. 4 of them have been murdered. 1 is in the pen for life. And another 4 of them is just smoking crack, smoking crystal. I'm the only one still standing.
Today, there are an estimated 800 hybrid gangsters in Vegas, operating in an untold number of cliques.
The city is so spread out, and there are neighborhoods with gang members all across the area. Shootings can occur really anywhere.
The breakdown of traditional gang structures has evolved even one step further into what are being called swarm gangs. Groups of young hybrid bangers who click up for no other reason than to terrorize local communities. Matthew, a casino worker, was a victim of a swarm-style attack that was caught on video.
And after I'd been thrown to the ground, they continued to kick me all over my back, my stomach. 2 people actually stomping me on my head. The side of my face felt like it was 3 sizes too big.
Matthew was just one of many victims of this particular swarm.
I thought it was just me that got attacked. I later found out that it was a series of 5 or 6 events that that same group of people took place in.
Email, texting, and instant messages make clicking up for a swarm attack that much easier.
People, I think that all these gang members are just a bunch of dummies, but they're not. Everyone has a pager, everyone texts, everyone knows how to work computers. They've evolved, and they will continue to evolve.
Johnny's personal evolution began in 2003, after he was released from prison. He says he's made a clean break from his gang. He now works in the restaurant business, although going straight has been a battle.
I'm 24 years old now, even though I got a felon in my record. At 17 years old, I went to my adult record. You know what I'm saying? If I could take about anything, it'll just be that felony.
Ramont Williams has also tried to change his life. His transformation began in Nevada's Ely State Penitentiary. In the middle of the prison yard, Ramont called a meeting of the prison's most ruthless gangsters. Leaders from every major Nevada gang were represented.
The police thought it was about to be a riot because everybody was coming out, and I had called all the shot callers together.
What happened next shocked every gangbanger there. Ramont Williams renounced the thug life.
I said, you know what, man, I'm done. And they were like, man, you tripping. You need to smoke this joint and chill out. And I was like, dude, I'm serious, I'm done.
Ramont says he could no longer live with all the pain he had caused.
I have a lot of regrets. Had I known that by initiating this, that it would cause so much hardship, so many mothers to cry and mourn for their kids, for a society that we live in to be terrorized by our own children, no, I would have never been involved in it.
Released from prison for a second time in 1998, Ramont Williams now operates a landscaping business.
I'm just a small business owner with 4 kids and a wife, man. That's it.
This one-time king of the Vegas streets also runs an organization called H2K, or Hope 2000. His goal is to warn kids about the perils of gang life.
All these kids are not going to die from gang banging. All these kids are not going to end up in prison like I did. A lot of these kids are going to grow up to be very productive. And I have to advocate for those where the possibility exists that will make it.
Ramont visits his old stomping grounds often to preach about the perils of the game.
Most times, kids don't realize the outcomes of being in gangs. You know, all they see is that moment, that flash, you know, that glory. They don't see the outcome of possibly death.
Then, in 2007, Ramont was indicted on an attempted murder charge after allegedly attacking another man with a garden hoe. The case has been scheduled for trial. For every Vegas banger who tries to escape the gang life, there are dozens more ready to join the game.
Just like pouring water in a glass with no sides. It would just keep flowing and flowing. It has no end. Only a beginning, but no end. And that's what makes these gangs in Vegas so dangerous.
In a town whose fame and fortune were built on the back of organized crime, gangsters may be as ingrained in Sin City culture as any glittering casino.
Vegas, man, is banging. It's always going to be banging, so it's always been banging.
They're back and bound with duct tape.
The intruders ransacked the house.
They found $240 in cash and a PlayStation that they ended up taking. It was all they had.
Then, one of the gunmen decided to up the ante. What happened next would go down as one of the most heinous crimes in Vegas history. It was the work of a new breed of gangsters in Sin City. Unlike in other cities, these Vegas crews have transcended the geographic boundaries normally associated with street gangs. Blue Angel is a former member of the Crips.
Where I come from, Crips don't hang with Bloods and Bloods don't hang with Crips. And a lot of these new guys, they go against that. You know, they break the rules.
Glass with no sides. It would just keep flowing and flowing. That's what makes these gangs in Vegas so dangerous.
Las Vegas, Nevada, August 13th, 1998. 19-year-old Matt Moen was outside cleaning up the front yard of his home. Suddenly, 3 armed intruders seized Moen and dragged him inside. Brandishing weapons, they bound Moen and 3 of his friends who were inside.
The boys were placed on the ground face down. Their legs were bound with duct tape. Their hands were behind their...
This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. It's a multi-billion-dollar playground where people from all over the world come to indulge. Just a few miles off the Strip.
Everybody killing everybody, you know what I'm saying?
It's a new version of an old Las Vegas tradition.
They're engaging in lawless acts, only seen in the movies. These kids have artillery that law enforcement can't get.
Urban warlords who've abandoned their traditional gang affiliations.
We got gangs popping up we ain't never even heard of.
Casting aside all notions of loyalty.
Now they're killing their own homeboys.
These modern gangsters have staked out all of Sin City as their turf.
It don't stop in the neighborhoods, Northtown, West Side. It's all over Las Vegas.
They can pretty much victimize wherever and whenever they feel like it.
Transforming America's favorite tourist destination.
Every day, man, it was drive-bys, you know. People was getting beat up or we was robbing people. Get up against the wall.
Into a hotbed of some of the most brutal criminals in the country.
People go in the houses with guns, breaking out windows. I done seen a whole family get their whooped.
Guns, sex, murder, and whatever.
These new Vegas gangsters are a window into the frightening world of gang warfare.
Just like pouring water.
Younger and more fluid in makeup, this new generation of gangs is clicking up. All across the city, turning what were once quiet neighborhoods into battlegrounds.
Just a few weeks ago, a little young cat like 14 years old, get his head shot off right in front of my stairs.
Johnny, a former gang member, asked that we conceal his identity. He says he's shocked by the violent nature of these new crews.
A lot of youngsters out there, they got guns. They don't listen to nobody. They're gonna rob, shoot, steal from whoever they want to.
And their willingness to violate the traditional codes of the streets is seen every day by the police.
Get against the wall, now! Against the wall. Hands up there.